From the Fans Talk Wrestling family at fanstalkwrestling.com, this is episode 22 of Fans Talk TNA and covers the March 20th, 2015 episode of Impact Wrestling on Destination America. My name is Garvin, and as always, we're joined by Nick. Say hello, Nick.
Howdy, howdy.
Fans Talk TNA is a podcast series that is brought to you exclusively by the paid members of the FTW community. You too can become a member and help keep this show funded. Just go to fanstalktna.com, click the big green button, and pledge $1 a month or more. All right, Nick, so let's just jump right into this conversation. A lot of cool matches happened this week. It was really a wrestling-heavy episode of Impact. So we started off with the Wolves versus Bromans versus Revolution in the Ultimate X match. Wolves won. Are you surprised that Wolves retained?
I'm not surprised at all. I figured this is the way it was going to go down. I would have enjoyed seeing Manic and Sonata take the titles personally, just because it would have been some validation for the feeling that you and I have had that they really should have been the tag team for the Revolution all along. But yeah, I think the Wolves absolutely deserve this.
Yeah, out of these three teams, I do like that the Wolves won. But you're right. I mean, Sonata and Manic as a tag team, that was one of my notes that I made during the show. I really thought they did a good job. They seemed to gel very well together. But overall, as far as an Ultimate X match, kind of boring. Did you feel that way?
I could see where that would be the case. Not really a lot of high octane stuff. And I guess that's to kind of be expected with it being tag team competition, just having 6 guys in there. I guess it would kind of have to be, I don't know if it has to be slowed down like that, but with as many bodies in the ring as there were, I can see how that'd be the case.
It just didn't seem like there was as much attention as we're used to on trying to climb the ropes. You know,
yeah.
It seemed like a majority of it was wrestling either in or outside of the ring. We saw people like start to climb up, but then get taken down. And I don't know if that was tag team based, but it did just seem like, actually maybe it was because it was tag team based, because every time one person climbed up, his tag team partner had to be there for some reason. Like when the match ended and the Wolves were holding the titles, it was because they both got up on the ropes, climbed the ropes all the way across, and grabbed an individual title. You know, maybe it would have been more effective if they treated it as anyone could climb up there and get both titles for their team.
Yeah, I kind of like that it was both of them going for it, because I feel like anytime you have one guy going and grabbing both titles, that just leads to a moment where the guy who did grab the titles is lording it over the guy who didn't. And I wouldn't necessarily say that happening with the Wolves, but yeah, I just don't think that spot would work for them. Maybe for the Bromans or the Revolution, just to kind of spark some internal strife. But
sure,
yeah, I definitely think the team nature of it did kind of clash with just the nature of an Ultimate X match.
All right, Samoa Joe versus Austin Aries. This was the final Samoa Joe match in TNA. Very sad with just saying that out loud. But yeah, this was the final match of Samoa Joe's career in TNA. He went up against Austin Aries. Very fitting overall. Aries won via DQ. Did you like this match?
Yeah, I thought it wasn't on the level of the Unbreakable match, but it was definitely a good match. One that I don't think Joe should be ashamed of at all. And to have it end in a DQ is a little bit of a disappointment, but just getting what we got out of that,
right,
with Spud cashing in and taking the X Division title. And I personally enjoyed the image of Joe chasing Spud and Hebner out of the arena.
Yeah.
I almost want to see Joe and Spud appear on an indie show and have Spud run out and Joe chase him just to continue that spot.
Yeah, overall, I think storyline-wise, that whole thing made sense. But just the idea that was Samoa Joe's final match in TNA, it was kind of disappointing for me, just because I think it was real short, like maybe like a 5-minute thing. And obviously, they didn't know at the time that this was going to be his last match. But I don't know. It did the story justice, but overall, for that to be Samoa Joe's last appearance on TNA, I don't know. I'm kind of saddened by it. But I think his last match in general was against Austin Aries. I'm trying to go back through old show notes and see if his last match his last like actual match. Yeah, his last actual match was right around the beginning of the March, late February. Aries versus Samoa Joe. That was a huge match. That was the match that they put Aries through a table, and Samoa Joe had to call the audible and put himself through the table just to finish the spot. So
Yeah.
so I think that was a better goodbye match for Samoa Joe than what we got. But overall, it was a good match. And yeah, like you said, Rockstar Spud is now your X Division champion. He cashed in. No real talk about the fact that he was bald, that he had this bandage over his head. He just ran right in, cashed it in, and then he left with the title. Overall, I thought that was a shocking turn, but a perfect moment for it.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that Aries backed him up on it. Like, he waved Spud on going down the ramp, and he congratulated Spud on the timing on Twitter. I think that's great, especially if it means Aries is not going to be going back and forth in the X Division.
So a lot of people have looked at the Spud versus EC3 match as a match that made a star out of Spud just because of how much punishment he was put through, but still stood up. So overall, with everything that's taken place in the last few weeks, do you see Spud providing that much needed spark for the X Division? Or do you think that the X Division title is just going to be something that they'll show on TV but not really push forward with?
It's hard to say because Spud is bringing a lot of attention to that title right now, just given how visible he's been against EC3. And since he's not involved in that BDC angle like Low-Ki was, there's a lot more room to have X Division title matches or X Division matches in general. It's just hard to say with the pattern that TNA seems to go through, where they go through spurts of showcasing that division, but then they'll just let it slide for a while. I have to imagine they will highlight that for at least the next little while, just given who's holding the belt now and how it was won.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at TNA's rankings yet, but I would have to imagine that Low-Ki would still be up there for the world title. So if that's the case, then this makes total sense. In the standpoint that now Low-Ki can concentrate on going after the top title.
Or is he out and Spud's in because Spud's not the X Division champion?
Well, I'm hoping that's not the direction that they go, because that makes absolutely no sense. But
right.
But with that thought, having Spud now be able to have the title, and he's isolated from any major storyline at this point, because you have to assume again that EC3 is now moving on to something else. Spud is now moving on to the X Division. So I think you definitely do have the opportunity here to start something big and good with the X Division, with the title being isolated from anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So, Magnus and Bram, we got some continuation of this feud. Overall, what did you think about this week's segment?
I thought it was pretty awesome. Maybe a bit too one-sided. Though I can definitely see how Magnus would summon up that righteous anger after being made to kiss Bram's boot. And I actually liked Mickie James beating the hell out of Bram. That was pretty nice. And I like how they built her up. She's not just your ordinary woman off the street. She's a former Knockouts champion. And they built the Knockouts champion up to be somebody who can take on somebody like Bram, even if it's only in certain circumstances. So, I mean, that was just nice for me personally.
I like this segment as well. As far as it being one-sided, I think that's totally fine, because last week it was one-sided. The week before that it was one-sided. So for now, to have Magnus get one up on Bram, I thought is exactly what you needed. The guy just sweats passion in everything that Magnus is doing as of late. It's just great. The way he worked in the ring, the way he spoke on the mic, I thought was fantastic. The Mickie James bit, I could have done without. I don't think she necessarily needed to be there for that. It definitely added to the segment. I think it definitely was nice, but at the same time, I'm not really interested in what Mickie James brings to this feud. I'd rather this just be Magnus versus Bram.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think just with what Magnus did, I think that would have been a worthwhile segment. And yeah, I don't necessarily want to see too much of Mickie James getting involved. I think if this is the last thing she does, I think that'd be great. because I mean, personally, I want to see her back in competition for the Knockouts title.
Well, speaking of the Knockouts title, we did get Awesome Kong versus Gail Kim and Taryn Terrell. I think our fear going into this was that it was going to be too much Awesome Kong versus Gail Kim. Taryn Terrell was going to be kind of pushed to the side, but I don't think we got that. I think Taryn Terrell actually looked pretty strong.
I don't know. Taryn did literally get pushed to the side as Gail went for that crossbody splash outside the ring.
Yeah, but as far as how the match ended, it wasn't so much that, because I think my fear going into this was that Gail was going to pin Taryn or Kong was going to pin Taryn. To me, there was no way Taryn was going to win. But for Taryn to then pin Gail, I thought that was a good way to do it. I mean, it still keeps it still keeps that idea that Taryn won't necessarily be able to beat Awesome Kong in a one-on-one match. It keeps Kong looking strong, but at the same time, Taryn did continue to fight. She never looked like she was in fear. She never ran away. She was always ready for that offense from Kong.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Taryn did retain. And I may be reading a little too much into it, but her expression that it was Gail that she pinned, not Kong, I think that means she's just as frustrated as I am that we haven't gotten that one-on-one confrontation yet where Taryn actually can put away Kong.
Right.
Or if nothing else, at least provide a definitive conclusion to that one-on-one angle one way or the other.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to get Taryn versus Awesome Kong in the near future. But with Gail over the last couple of weeks, basically telling Taryn that she doesn't know what she's getting herself into. I think we finally saw that Taryn, she knows what she's getting herself into. She did take as much offense as she could to take out Awesome Kong. So it should be a really interesting story as we move forward. But now I have more confidence in Taryn, and I have more confidence in how TNA is writing Taryn. Okay. Later on in the night, we had James Storm versus Matt Hardy in a no disqualification match. This match I really wasn't sure about. I don't know. I just don't like what they're doing with the Revolution. I feel that the Revolution are portrayed as just huge failures. Like, it takes all 5 of them to defeat Matt Hardy. I just don't get where they're taking this group. And also, earlier in the night, you've got Manic and Sonata, and they lose in that match. Just a lot of losses for this team. And I know this was a win on paper, but, realistically, to take all 5 of them to defeat Matt Hardy, I think, it really shows how weak this group is.
I'm okay with the booking to a degree. Within kayfabe, Matt Hardy is a legend. He's not your average bear. I can see how they would build up a story where you need multiple guys to take on Matt Hardy. Realistically, you just need somebody who can run circles around the man in order to take him out. I've never really gotten all the comments about stiff leg Matt Hardy. I think usually he can move around well enough, but in this match, it really was apparent that dude just doesn't get around as well as he used to. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what sort of condition he might have.
Years of leg drops, I think is what he said.
Yeah, that makes sense. Personally, I'm just happy that James Storm won a match. I've been afraid that he's just been losing, and that would have basically spelled the end of the Revolution. Either his cohorts would have lost respect for him, or it would have ended up like the last major angle Storm was in, and it just would have fizzled out with no real conclusion.
Yeah. All right, Lashley versus Angle. Was it everything you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, that and so much more. Everything about that match, the way they've been building it ever since Angle became number 1 contender, and just the way they recut those entrances to have them going from the time they left the locker room on the way to the ring. I thought that was amazing. You talk about big fight feel. That was the epitome right there. And the match, that definitely lived up to that feel. I don't think I really expected Angle to win in the fashion that he did, but yeah, that was just a great match, start to finish.
Yeah, the way that the wrestlers came down to the ring and just dragging it out just added so much tension. Jeremy Borash as your ring announcer for that is just fantastic. I just love how he introduces the main events for pay-per-views, or in this case, like this special big match at the end of an Impact. So yeah, I think everything as far as the build-up goes, I thought was very good. The match itself was good. I don't know if I agree with the tap out, but I'm okay with a clean finish. It's been so long since we had one of those.
Yeah.
So, okay, with that win, Kurt Angle is now your Fans Talk TNA champion. So, Bobby Lashley held the title since January 9th. So basically, since he's held the title in TNA. So, yeah, our championship seems to mimic TNA's championships very well. We'll see how that continues. Wins and fails of the week. Nick, what was your favorite moment this week?
I just got to reiterate the whole big fight feel of the main event. WWE, good luck following that up with that Mania. I never thought I would have said this, but I legitimately think with that main event in Wembley, I think they've got a shot at outshining the WrestleMania main event.
Can't argue. My win is going to go with Spud cashing in. It was a brief segment, but I loved it. I love the fact that he won the title. That was definitely my mark out moment of the night. I was really happy about that. Fails. What was your least favorite moment of the week?
I hope this week marks the end of me having to harp on this, but the triple threat knockouts match. Not necessarily the match itself. I thought that was pretty decent, if not actually a good match. But yeah, it's just the match that I've been afraid of seeing, and that's Gail Kim being inserted into the feud, fighting for the title. Again, I hope that this means Gail Kim moves on to other things now that she's been pinned and she's out of the running. So hopefully we'll see Taryn versus Kong in the very near future.
Well, and hopefully we get some more knockouts in the division.
Yes.
My fail is going to go to the lack of good video packages. That was one thing that I kept raving about the last 2 or 3 weeks, is that they were building up their matches so well with these video packages. And this week, we really didn't get that. It was like we got like a backstage segment type thing where they were interviewing different wrestlers to get their predictions. The video package that we did get for Angle versus Lashley didn't live up to the same level that we have become accustomed to with TNA. So yeah.
Oh, you didn't like that one? The Survival of the Fittest?
No, I thought that was lame.
Huh. I don't know. I thought it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, this week it was Survival of the Fittest, where they basically equated the match to the savannah, animals on the savannah, and then the British Empire, like taking over Europe and whatnot. I don't know. It was just, I don't know. I just thought it was lame. All right, final thoughts. Final thoughts before we head out.
I kind of wish there were more UK shows left in the can. These have been really good.
Yeah, this is the final one. Final show. And I feel like we've said that every year, like that they've been doing the UK tours, that the UK tour is always awesome, and then they come back, like in years past, they would come back to the Impact Zone. That was always dreadful.
Yeah, what a letdown. And they actually are going back to the Impact Zone.
Yes, but it's a different Impact Zone. It's going to look totally different.
Hopefully with a new crowd.
Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah. I don't really have any final thoughts. Just want to thank everyone for listening and continuing the conversation as you guys have. Don't forget, become a paid member of the FTW community by going to fanstalktna.com and clicking the big green button. The FTW community is helping us spend less time worrying about paying the bills and more time talking wrestling with you each and every week. So let's keep the conversation going. You can reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, as well as comments on the site. All of the information is on fanstalktna.com. And if you listen on demand through a service that allows you to leave ratings and reviews, please do so. Take a moment, let people know that this is where they should be talking TNA. See you guys next week.